Testing, 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 testing. Here we go. Take two. It's funny. I remember when I was writing that first book, my dad did a fair amount of editing for me, which was pretty awesome. And I remember I had printed out the manuscript for it. It was like 40,000 words. I printed out the manuscript for it and I gave it to him. And he basically, I remember one morning, he took it out and it was on the table and it looked like it was soaked in red ink. It's like, oh my gosh, what happened here? Hey guys, welcome to my channel. This is the Phoenix Inkwell, where we tell stories through creativity, and we help you create and tell your own stories, as well as some other fun stuff on the side as well. My name is Will, and I guess I just refer to myself as a storyteller. Thank you for watching this video. This is my first YouTube video on this channel. And the idea is that this channel is really designed to help encourage people to tell their own stories, as well as sharing my own journey in being a creator in this crazy time that we're in. So I'm sharing my journey, and I hope that encourages someone out there to share theirs. I was previously a published author. I wrote a fantasy novel a little under 10 years ago. And I also did some podcasting over the course of time over the last several years. And the idea is that I wanted to kind of create a space where I can share what I'm learning at the moment, what I have learned previously, and sort of show the process of that happening. Gary Vee kind of talks about document, don't create. And I think documenting actually is creating in a sort of way, because you're still creating a narrative and sharing a story. It's just the story that is behind the story that you're creating. So if you're like me, you'll want to join me. Welcome to the channel. Let's rise from the ashes and shine brightly together like a phoenix. Hence the name Phoenix Inkwell. So today is November 1st, which makes it officially the very first day of National Novel Writing Month, otherwise known as NaNoWriMo. So for those of you that don't know what NaNoWriMo is, it stands for National Novel Writing Month. It happens every November. And traditionally, it's known as you take this month to write a 50,000 word novel. So at the start of the month, you have nothing. And at the end of the month, you have a first draft for a 50,000 word novel. That definition has kind of changed a little bit in recent years. You don't necessarily have to do the whole 50,000 words. It also doesn't have to be just a novel. It could be a screenplay. It could be a collection of poems. It could be a journal, articles, honestly, anything. The idea is that it just has to be writing. So if you're writing something this month, you can take part in NaNoWriMo, which is pretty awesome. Writing sometimes can be lonely. I remember plenty of times of being in a space where I was chucking away at that book 10 years ago. And, there was times where I was like, man, do people still laugh out there?
Do people still laugh out there? I miss the laughter.
So some of you, especially if you're watching this channel, if you're a creator, some of you might be writing this month. And I figured, it would be a great idea to kind of share some tips that I learned over the course of time. But then also, I've learned a lot of stuff recently that has also been pretty helpful. And has sort of changed some of the way that I look at my writing process a little bit. So the first tip is you got to commit. You got to commit to writing. You got to be like, hey, you know what? We're going to do this. We're going to decide we're going to go for it this time. That's just what we're going to do. And, I'm not going to, I'm not going to wait any longer. I'm just going to decide today is the day I'm going to start. So you just decide that, hey, I'm going to start and I'm going to begin. Some of you that are familiar with the NaNoWriMo world or culture or whatever you want to call it, know that October is usually lovingly referred to as Preptober. So the idea is that you do all your preparation in October, so that way in November you can do all the writing. So it's very, very helpful. And I actually did do Preptober this year, which I'm glad, because I probably would be in a much different situation right now if I had not. But the idea is that, if you're brand new to this and you didn't know about NaNoWriMo, so you couldn't take part in the preparation part in October, I would just do it now. Like, there's plenty of time. Again, the idea is that, you're writing, you're creating, you're starting today. It's not worth waiting another day. You got to just jump in and get started. The next one is to just get in the mood. What I mean by this is that you want to put yourself in the space of what you're writing. So let's say, this could be for a fiction writer. It can be, putting yourself in the world that you built. I know when I was writing my fantasy novel a little under a decade ago, I would have maps and, I would draw up pictures of different places in the world. And I wanted my mind to inhabit that space. And you got to make sure that you do that. It puts you in the right space to be able to write. But let's say you're writing nonfiction. You're not writing a fantasy world. You still want to be able to put yourself in that space by putting yourself back in the moment when you experience what you're writing. Maybe you're writing a memoir, or maybe you're writing a remembrance book. You want to be able to put yourself back in that moment, so you're not just writing about that memory, but you're almost reliving that memory to a certain degree. What it does is that it creates a lot of emotional impact, and it helps you see that experience through the eyes of which you experienced it. Sometimes you can just get to that space really quickly and really easily, but that's not always the case. So one thing you can also do is to use your senses. So for example, one of the first things is that I actually have a writing uniform. I'm wearing it right now. Beret, I have my sweater, I got my coffee, and my awesome Lo-Fi Girl cup mug. Pretty awesome stuff. Just to kind of get into that mode, when I put that beret on, I'm becoming the writer. That's what I'm doing. Plus, I like how it looks. Some people also will do things like they'll get candles and they'll set up scents and that kind of thing. And that's also a really great thing to be able to do as well. Especially during the planning part. If you use the same scent during the planning piece and when you're writing the actual work, it can actually kind of put your brain back in that space of when you were writing it the first time. YouTuber Abby Emmons had a really great video kind of talking about getting into your character's mindset, which is where I got some of these things from. But she also recommended things like dressing like your character, listening to music your character would listen to. So, especially if you're, writing a book that kind of takes place in a somewhat similar world that we're in, building a playlist, build a writing playlist. I know that when I was writing my last novel, I had a whole bunch of fantasy music and that kind of stuff playing through. And that can be true for nonfiction as well. Say you're writing, a self-help book or something like that. Think of how you can involve your senses to the person that you were when you were experiencing those things and learning those lessons. Or maybe even just, your target audience. What would they listen to? What would they wear? Like the idea is you want to get yourself in their brain. And what this does is that if you can basically put yourself in the space of what you're writing, it creates what's called a flow state. It makes it a lot easier to be able to write, and you don't end up in a space where you get stopped a lot. There's actually a really great segue into the next tip, which is you must turn off your editor brain. So for me, this was one of the hardest lessons that I had to learn is that I had to give myself permission to make mistakes. I kind of had to allow myself to be a quote unquote bad writer. Basically what that meant is that I couldn't go back and fix spelling errors or grammar errors as I was writing, because if I did that, it would take me out of my flow state and it would take me forever to get back into it. Once you're in that flow state, and you'll know it when you're in it, like you feel it in every bit, your hands are clacking on the keys on the keyboard. You're basically in a space where you can do a lot of things very, very quickly because you're creatively inspired. You don't want to mess with that. You don't want to get out of your flow state. So allow yourself to be a bad writer. Forget the grammar. Forget the spelling. The idea is that, you have an editing process after. Some of you might even have an editor. Let them do that. That's their job. Don't worry about that. Allow yourself to be a bad writer, especially for your first draft. And then the final tip here is just remembering why. Why are we doing what we're doing? If you remember why you're doing the thing, it allows you to kind of tie into the purpose of your story. It gives you the rigor to be able to continue, because it's a long month sometimes. There's some days where the words are just not going to flow as easily as the others. It's going to take you longer to get into your flow state. There might be days you might not even get into your flow state. There might be days where you write something and then you realize a week later that I need to trash that entire section because I have completely changed my mind on how this story is going to go. And remembering the why behind it is what's going to allow you to overcome some of that stuff. It can also help limit distractions. If you are prone to distraction like myself sometimes, remembering the why can help with that a little bit. There is also something else to this too, is that, and this is probably my final tip here, is also to remember when to turn everything off. One thing that I found is that after I finished writing the first novel, I immediately tried jumping into writing the next one. And I found that I burnt out, essentially. I was like, I'm out of it. I can't do this. This just isn't it. And basically it stopped me from writing for a very, very long time. So in that particular sense, I would encourage you to know when to turn everything off. Plan out your day, block out your calendar. For those of you that do calendar blocking, block out times on your schedule to be, it's like during this time, I'm going to write. And then outside of that time, be able to do other stuff. Do things like the Pomodoro technique, which, allows you to take short breaks in between doing things. So those are just some tips that I wanted to share. I hope they're helpful for you. I hope that for those of you that are participating in NaNoWriMo, I hope all of y'all win. Again, winning is the whole classic idea of like you write 50,000 words. But again, the idea is that you're just writing. That's the most important part. During this month, I'm actually going to be doing weekly vlogs. I'll come out on Sundays around the NaNoWriMo experience, writing my current novel that I'm writing right now, or starting today, as well as some other creative content too, tip videos like this, and even other things too, like I'll probably talk about Sonic or K-pop music, or at some point I'll probably stream me having to rebuild my whole island in Animal Crossing. But yeah, it's just going to be a lot of fun. I hope you stick around, and I hope it's entertaining for you. And if you enjoyed this, I would really appreciate if you could leave a like on the video and leave a comment. And if this is content you think you'll be interested in, go ahead and hit subscribe. You'll see content at least once a week with the vlogs and some of the other content as well. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.